In the original Gospel, the Gospel of Mark, we read of the anointing of Jesus. Not the anointing of him as a king, but the anointing of his body with a fragrant ointment in preparation for his burial. It is 2 days before the Passover, and Jesus is alive and well. He's at the village of Bethany, barely 2 miles from the walled city of Jerusalem. Jesus is staying at the house of Simon the leper, a character we know nothing else about. As Jesus sits at the table, an unnamed woman arrives with an alabaster jar of precious ointment called pure nard. She pours the contents on Jesus' head. Those present, as we shall see shortly, the disciples, object to the waste of a luxury item that could have been sold and the proceeds given to the poor, but Jesus himself defends the woman's action. In his own words, "Let her alone. She has come to anoint my body for its burial." This is famously, and I would say infamously, where Jesus defends his indulgence by saying the poor will always be with you, but he won't be. It's a plea that could be used by any self-indulgent glutton. But in any event, having been anointed in the next chapter of Mark, Jesus dies and is buried by Joseph of Arimathea, another mysterious character, but apparently a member of the Jewish High Council. He wraps the body of Jesus in fine linen, puts the body into a rock-cut tomb, and rolls into place the stone that seals the tomb. Now let's look at how Matthew refines Mark's story. The anointing scene is still in Bethany, the house of Simon the leper. It is again 2 days before the Passover, and again an unknown woman appears and pours ointment from an alabaster jar over Jesus' head. Matthew now clarifies that it's the disciples who are indignant about the waste, and the words from Jesus almost identical to those used in Mark. "Don't trouble this woman, she has poured the ointment for my burial. The poor will always be with you." In the following chapter, Jesus dies, and again Joseph of Arimathea inters the body in what is now his own new sepulchre. But this time, Joseph is identified not as a member of the Jewish High Council, but as a rich man and as a disciple of Jesus. So what does the next novelist, Luke, make of the story? He makes some interesting changes. Luke still has the unknown woman, but now she is called a sinner. She still has her alabaster jar of ointment, and Jesus is still in the house of Simon. But this time it's no longer Simon the leper, but Simon the Pharisee. The venue has been moved from Bethany to somewhere in Galilee, and it's now placed earlier in the year. What Luke does is to develop the actual anointing. The woman first washes Jesus' feet with her tears, if you can imagine such a thing, and then dries his feet with her hair. The ointment is now used to anoint not his head, but his feet. This time round, no one objects to the waste of expensive ointment, and Jesus gives the parable about forgiving sins. Christian apologists will tell you that despite some similarities, this is a different episode entirely. But is it? The fourth Gospel proves that the anointing in Luke is merely a variation on the same tale drawn from a common body of material. John's Gospel moves the action back to Bethany. John tells us that it's 6 days before Passover. John still has the woman with the ointment, identified as pure nard, as in Mark's original tale. The woman now is identified. She's Mary, sister of Martha, and of the recently raised from the dead Lazarus. But this time round, there's no mention of Simon, either Simon the leper or Simon the Pharisee. As to the actual anointing, John borrows from Luke. The woman anoints Jesus' feet and then uses her hair to dry his feet. What's really interesting is the supposed dialogue presented by John. Now it is not all the disciples that object, but Judas Iscariot alone, who identifies the waste of what amounted to the value of a labourer's annual wages. But John tells us that Judas didn't really care about the poor, but was himself a thief. Though, of course, poor Judas is not able to defend himself. Well, for all the novelties, the words of Jesus are, as we find in Mark and Matthew, "Leave her alone, she has kept the anointment for my day of burial. The poor are always with you." Okay, so there are minor differences, but essentially the common story is that just prior to his death, Jesus was given, either upon his head or his feet, ointment from a woman, and its purpose was to prepare him for his burial. However, we have other changes made in John's version. Joseph of Arimathea now has the assistance of a character found only in John's Gospel, Nicodemus. This guy trumps all the earlier anointings because he brings 100 pounds of weight of myrrh and aloes. which the two of them wrap into the burial linen of Jesus and place the body in a conveniently close garden tomb. Now, could any of this be remotely true? Well, let's step back to the original take in Mark and consider the next supposed episode. In Mark, Mary Magdalene and Mary, mother of Joseph, have watched where Joseph of Arimathea placed the body. They return the day after the Sabbath with a third woman called Salome. Why? Because they are, apparently, bringing sweet spices to anoint the body. Luke repeats the same claim, although he names not Salome, but Joanna, plus other women. But think about it. If the story of Nicodemus were true, why would a body already wrapped in 100 pounds weight of spices that had been anointed anyway with precious ointments need any further anointing? Even if we discount John's tale entirely, we still have a more intractable problem. In the normal universe, a body is prepared for burial and then interred. The tomb is sealed shut and the dead are left in peace. Only in the Christian universe is a body wrapped in fine and clean burial linen, with or without 100 pounds worth of myrrh and aloes, placed in a tomb, the door rolled shut, only to have either 2 or 3 or 4 or more women turn up 2 days later with apparently the intention of anointing the body with even more spices. Such tampering with the dead would be distasteful, sacrilegious, and in the Jewish context unthinkable. In truth, the visit of the women to the tomb is a contrived plot element. The author needs the women to go to the tomb, not really to anoint the body, that's simply a pretext, but to witness that the stone has been moved away, and that the tomb itself was empty. And let me leave you with a final thought. Why did the stone need to be moved anyway? If Jesus really had resurrected, and could, as the Gospels tell us, appear and disappear at will, and pass through locked doors, why on earth would he need the stone moved? Only in a fictional drama would Jesus have needed this extra prop. But of course, the story isn't true. It isn't history. It's more astounding rubbish from the New Testament.